All right, welcome to our coaching chat Zoom. I am so excited about this new series, Ditch the Pitch. Linda and Brenda and myself currently are going through the training, but I feel like this right here is what we all need just to dig in and start learning. And that's exactly what I feel like this last week has done for me, just kind of chewing up the first several chapters of this book. And so we are going to, you can't probably see it, but it's Ditch the Pitch. And then the tagline says, the art of improvised persuasion, the art of improvised persuasion. And so one page just to kind of talk about what does that even mean and what does that look like? So let me see how many people are with me when I say improvise. You need to improvise. How many of you would raise your hand with me and say, oh, it's a little scary hearing that word because I like to be in control. I like to be prepared. I like to know what I'm going to say. Am I the only one? How many others? Okay. And then we got some people like Aaron and Linda. Who else on here can I point out that are just just go with the flow and that doesn't even bother you the slightest. So you're probably going to be on one side of that or the other, and either one side, it's not wrong to be on one side or the other, but I feel like this is going to stretch me a bit, and I'm excited. I hope it will for you guys too. But let me read. When the word improvision is said, what is it? So here's what he has listed. Improvision is freedom. It frees you from the constraints of predetermined story. So I know a lot of times I'll hear people say, oh my gosh, I don't quite know what to say. And if we're so fixed on that, when we do talk, it's going to come out like that. So give yourself the freedom that you know what to say. You really will stop having that thought that, oh my gosh, because I know if you've been on this call any length of time, you're learning. You're going to be learning and the right words will come out. And I remember in the beginning saying this quite frequently on Voxer. I would say something and then it wasn't Voxer back then, it was VoiceCom. And I would be talking to something and all of a sudden something would come out. I'd be like, dang, that sounded pretty good. And you know why it was because I was constantly putting stuff in. So you guys are getting a ton of stuff just being on this call, hearing from each other every week. It's in there and it will come out. So give yourself the freedom. The next thing he talks about is improvision is exciting. You know, when you go to a play and they have a script, but you can tell they're off, they go off on a tangent and it's usually good. It makes it even better. So it gets exciting. The next thing he talks about is improvision is natural. And he said, what it gives you the freedom and the ability to be prepared to adapt to the situation. I've heard Linda Gardner say this a lot in that just as she's talking to people, what she's doing is she's changing, and you've heard us all say this, changing our story. It's still our story, but what are we doing? We're adapting to our audience. Improvision is fresh. It's never going to be stale because you're not quite sure what you're saying. And so as you're saying, it's going to come out more authentic. And then lastly, he talks, two more. Improvision is affirmative. What does it feel like if you're talking and I'm doing this? What does that say? I'm agreeing. Anytime someone's agreeing with you, you're going to like them. You're going to get into that conversation a little more when you hear someone saying, wow, that's right, and agreeing. So when you're improvising, you're not trying to think about what's my next line. What you're doing is you're into what's there in the present time. And then he also talks about improvision is collaborative. And same thing, when I'm talking to someone and they're into what I'm saying and they're contributing and you're going back and forth, that's a good feeling. And what you're doing with that collaborative conversation is you're validating them and they're validating you, and it's like you're feeding off each other. So when we hear the word improvision, let's lean into it, especially those of us who are those more kind of controlled and maybe leaning a little bit in that perfectionist category. Let's lean into this because I can see where he's going with it and it's good. Okay, so I'm going to pull up. Do I have my screen pulled up? Well, one moment. Sorry, folks. I thought I had it all queued up and ready for us, and I do. Okay, here we go. Well, excuse me, folks. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's jump into the pitch book. We're going to talk about habit number 1 today, but just to give you an overview of what's to come. So I've asked Linda and I've asked Brenda. I'm going to reach out to maybe some other ones, and we're going to kind of take turns just tackling these 6 different habits. So there are 3 categories that these 6 habits fall into, 2 in each. Number 1 is the first 2 habits fall under figure out what's going on. So really kind of when you jump into that conversation, you're trying to size up what's actually being said. Where's this person landing? The next 2 habits fall under go with the flow. And this is probably where I need probably to focus in on myself, because usually I've got an agenda of where I want to take people, but there's that value of letting the conversation unfold and being willing to go with the flow. And then the last 2 habits fall under let a shared story emerge through the conversation. So I think in years past, we've been taught, know your story, know your story, know your story. Maybe the term needs to be know how to weave your story into the conversation. And so we're going to learn all 6 of these habits, but today we're going to jump into habit number 1. And that is think input before output. And those of you who are on this call who, like me, are an extrovert, this is a challenge because I'm constantly thinking about, okay, what do I need to say next? How's that going to flow? And what we want to do is first and foremost, be alert. Ask yourself what's going on. Okay, so right now, as we jump into this, I want you guys to take one moment and get somebody, 1 or 2 people in your head right now. Who have you been dripping on right now to add them and wanting them to join your team? How many people have someone in mind right now? Raise your hand. All right, think for a minute. Who do you need? Who have you been dripping on that you would absolutely love to have be a part of your team? So as I talk, I'm going to talk in regard to, there was a nurse that I met when I went up and visited my brother in the hospital, and I've been communicating with her, mainly via text. She works all the time, but I'm going to kind of share the things I'm seeing that I've done right and the things I've done wrong through my conversation with this person so far. I really want to bring on a whole new line up in Ohio. So my person is Allie. I want you to write whoever your person is. I want you to write their name, fold the paper over so it's kind of sitting up like a little tent wherever you are. So as we talk about this, I want you to look at that name and think about the conversations you've had or will have with that person. Okay, so be alert. Ask yourself what's going on here. So with my person, Allie, my brother started talking to her before I got there about Juice Plus. I got there, kind of had some more conversation, and we've been in a text conversation ever since. But here's what I've seen just by ditching the pitch. And granted, it's a little more challenging when you're doing it more through a text process. But what I've seen is I personally have got to slow it down because I have been feeding her information and I'm not getting a ton back from her. So the first thing when reading this book and kind of having Allie in my mind is I got to see where she's going with this. The only thing I know about her, she's a nurse of 20 years. She's got grown kids. She has already said, gosh, I just don't know that I have the time to do this. She works all the time. And I know that she and her husband are dealing with cholesterol issues. Okay, so that's kind of my grasp of her, but I've been feeding her this. What about this doctor? I talked to this doctor about Juice Plus. I've sent this doctor Juice Plus. I'm kind of painting the picture that I've got about 6 or 7 potential customers from that hospital when I was there that I can put under you. If you see value in this product, if you can align yourself with this research. So I'm dripping on her like that. But suddenly I sat back when I started reading this Ditch the Pitch and thought, what is it that would attract Allie to this business? I'm assuming she wants a residual income stream. I've talked a little bit about that. I've talked about this would give her a chance to retire early since she worked so hard. But you know what I haven't done is flat asked her that question. Do you see yourself wanting a product like this? If so, why? What's going on inside her head? I've been so busy getting information to her that I have got to slow it down and start really finding out what's going on. Now look at your name of your person. Do you know what's going on inside their head right now? Secondly, actively listen and build on each other's ideas. When I'm so busy getting information out to somebody, I don't know, I'm not building on each other's ideas. When I'm actually having a conversation, it's a little bit easier to hear what they say, share a little bit. Oh my gosh. When you're talking to someone in the light bulb, you see an idea pop in their head, you see it in their eyes open wide, they lean in. I'm not having that yet. Are you having that with that person? That you see the ideas, light bulbs going off in their head of how they could lean into this business, how it would benefit them. If I'm not actively listening, I'm missing out on seeing that in their eyes when they catch an idea. Anticipate the unexpected. When we're kind of talking to them, we're going to pick up on a hesitation. Fortunately, Wayne picked up on the hesitation of her saying she's so busy and works all the time. So at least I've got that unexpected, anticipated thing that I know I need to start addressing that issue. The next thing, and when it comes to being alert, is be present. Man, I'm bad about this. I'm thinking of what am I going to say next? This is what I can say. Ooh, this, ooh, this. What if I just really lean in and I really am trying my best to be present and hear what's being said, what's not being said. I'm being present to just right now, I'm looking at people. I'm looking at Allison, am I present in the conversation with her that I could pick up on? Am I starting to bore her? Is she connecting with what I'm saying? Looking at people's faces and trying to catch what's going on just by their facial expressions, you got to be present to be able to do that. And I'm here to confess, I like to move quickly, and I miss this a lot of times. And then this one was huge to me. A cluttered mind crowds out inspiration. If I've got all this stuff going on in my mind and I'm not really alert to that person, we become very uninspiring. But if I'm there and I'm picking up on cues you're making and I'm commenting on them, then what I'm doing is I'm bringing about inspiration into the conversation. So first and foremost, we have to be alert. And I love these just little one-liners that I picked up throughout that chapter that I felt were powerful, that, wow, even though I feel like I'm a good communicator, when I read this stuff, I'm like, I got some work that needs to be done. So hopefully you guys, this will inspire you as we really dig in and start picking up on this stuff. The next thing is say less to notice more. I love this line. When you talk, you can't hear what's needed. And people aren't going to buy Juice Plus, and people aren't going to join our business if we can't hear what's needed. And I'll tell you, I'm going back to my gal, Allie. And I remember, so Wayne's telling me she thinks she's too busy, and he goes, she does. She works all the time. So I'm honing in on, I started talking to her about our wellness, being her wellness coordinator, and who all she knew that I'd already talked to. But now that I step back after I share all this with her on text, and I just said, I feel like this would be being a medical professional, this would be a great alternative if you feel like you're too busy. And do you know what I got back from her? Okay. Okay, that's enough, Elaine. Okay, that's a great idea. Okay. So what? And what this is making me think through, going back to her and saying, so you said okay, what did you say okay to? I need to hear what she really needs. And I got to be careful about running down a path too fast and too far ahead of someone and not hearing truly what's being said. I need to say less when it comes to texting, even though I'm not really talking to her, which I need to do a phone call with her. Okay, listen between the lines for the idea. Kind of back up to where we said actively listening so that you're bouncing ideas off each other. If I'm not quiet long enough, I'm gonna miss those reading between the lines and really hearing what's being said. And we've got to do really, truly good active listening is being able to read between the lines. And that's a skill. Sometimes some of us are born with better communication skills than others. But the bottom line is it's a skill, and a skill can be learned. So whether or not you view yourself as a good communicator or not, anyone can become a good communicator if we want to and we're willing to practice what this book is sharing with us. And being able to read between the lines is huge. Have you ever seen someone in a conversation with someone else and they are just, just hammering that person with information, and you see it on that other person's face, like they're like disinterested, and that person continues to drill down on more information? Anybody seen that before? It's painful to watch, and yet we all do it, and we're so into what we're saying, we don't even notice we're doing it. But you pick it up when you see someone else doing it. And that's where that being able to read between the lines, slow it down, is going to be huge, and say less to notice more. And then that third thing, pick up what they're not aware of. They may not even be aware of some of the benefits, or even some of the things that they're good at. They're you can tell they're putting up a wall, but they may not even notice that they're putting up a wall or that there's some kind of issue. But if we're saying less to notice more, we may be picking up on stuff they're not even aware of, that we can address before they even know it's an issue. All right, and then the third point, and then we're going to kind of open it up for, I want to hear from you who your person is, what you've seen based on these points, what you've done right and what you've done wrong, and what you're going to do to change. Okay, the third point, and man, this is probably my biggest offending point under habit 1, and that's turn down your analytical brain. And the first point there is don't lose the fun out of it. And my husband he's an excellent communicator, and he calls me out when I'm not being a good communicator. And one of the things he loves to do is to dream, and dream big. And he will be telling me about a dream. He'll be excited. Let's do this. What if we did this? What if we went here? And what do? My mind goes to that analytical side, and I try to pick apart anything that I think would slow down or hinder or stop that dream. And he'll look at me and say, that is the thing that makes me the maddest about you. You're squelching my dream. Can you not just sit there and listen to my dream and go there with me? Stop figuring out why something won't work. And I see myself doing that. And so that's an area I want to get better at. I don't want to lose the fun. Am I robbing people because I'm so intent on maybe giving them the whole picture that I'm missing out on the fun of this process of getting to know this person, finding out where they want to go, what they want to do, what their dreams are, that I'm so intent on getting everything in their brain that they need to know. That second point, limit self-judgment or self-criticism. How about this? How many of you in the conversation, you're talking, but in the back of your mind, you're like, dang, I shouldn't have said that. Ooh, I should have said this. Oh, what are they thinking? Why did I say that? We're totally pulling ourselves out of the conversation, and we're not being alert because our analytical brain is going 95 miles a minute in the back to the point that we're beating ourselves up instead of listening to what they're saying. I'm a huge do that. Number 3, overthinking destroys spontaneity. Oh my gosh, I'm an overthinker. And I'm just like, then they need this, they need this, they need this, versus what if I just focus on them till they quit talking and then let the thoughts pop out in a spontaneous way. It's going to come out. It's going to be way more authentic. It's going to be way more about that person versus myself and how well I'm talking. And I guarantee you guys, we all on this call know enough to respond spontaneously without having to think about it while they're talking and staying with them till the very last word. And you know what? It's okay to like take a pause and then respond. Because what does that pause tell you? If I am this again, if I annoy my husband more than anything, this is the area I annoy the daylights out of him. He will be talking and I will finish his sentence. And he looks at me and goes, no, that is not what I was going to say. Stop it. Like, I'm sorry. I am a big offender of that. And, you know, I'm ruining the conversation. So I know if I'm doing it with him, I'm doing it with other people. So forgive me to all those people out there that I do that to. And I'm working on it. I'm kind of like when your kid misbehaves. I took a parenting class and it said, you just look at him and say, we're working on it. And that's what I'm going to say. I'm working on it, folks. I'm working on this. This training's going to help me. Number 4, confidence produces belief. And have you ever been talking to someone and they're like, and this and this and blah, 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 blah. And it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction you're seeing them do is because they're trying to make everything they say be perfect. What does that communicate? It doesn't communicate confidence because they're kind of like trying to make it perfect. That does not portray confidence. And if we come across confident, it's going to build their belief in us, in our business, in our product. So think about, even though we're hesitant about letting things flow out naturally, when we do, we come across much more confident than if we got it structured and we got to follow this and we're kind of that tells me someone's scared and they're not sure about what they're saying. And I know you guys on this call know enough. And as we teach our team, as they come on board, it's through those conversations, get them listening to all kinds of training, because what happens, it gets in and we don't even know it. And then it flows out like at the drop of the hat, and it'll come across authentic. It'll come across confident, spontaneous, caring. So let's really focus on that, naturally letting the conversation come out. And then the last one, don't think too soon about what's coming up. and again, what's going on? We got all this clutter, all this activity in our brain. And if all this activity is going on, then we're not really listening to that person, and our analytical brain's taking over and taking us in a whole nother direction. And it may not be the direction that that person that we're talking to. And so just reading this weekend is totally going to help me shift my approach. One, I'm going to try to talk to my gal, but that I'm working on bringing on board. But it's also even in my written communication, I got to figure out how to bring her on board, because right now she probably feels like I'm preaching at her versus really, really just, come on, let's do this. Let's have fun. All right, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to stop the recording now.